Last week, we got done all we could do on our Mustang road racing. We're simply out of parts, so we parked it and grabbed today's project. This 70 Challenger we lovingly named Overkill. You Mopar fans thought we parked it forever. Well, dust off your Pentastar, because today's all for you. In 2002, 7 Dodge Challengers were used in the motion picture Too Fast, Too Furious. Some were show cars, others were stunt cars. The stunt cars, they drove them hard, and most of them came back rough around the edges. Year 1 supplied some of the parts for the Challengers. When the movie wrapped, they ended up with one of them. They sent it to us last year. It needed a lot of TLC. The bottom line, the car was tired. So we had a lot of work to do. Even Ian and Jesse from Extreme 4x4 came over to help. First thing was to strip the car. The bumpers, the fenders, doors, interior, the works. Everything had to be gone through, and then a parts list was made. Then it was off to blast from the past to get stripped. Seeing it in bare metal was the only way to tell how much work we were in for. Once the Challenger was back in the shop, we got started. First, the small stuff. The rear window channel needed some new metal. Some fabrication took care of that. All of our replacement panels came from Goodmark. The quarters were cut on the body line, and the new ones were welded in place. Next, we tackled the firewall and filled all the holes. The body panels were hung in place to see how they would line up. We bolted in a K-member from Red Top Speed Shop that would hold our 528 Hemi. A Kiesler 5-speed and a Dana 60 from Curry complete the drivetrain. Air ride suspension all the way around. Because of the ride height, the floor was next. It was completely cut out. A section in the rear frame was repaired and frame connectors were added to stop the twist. Since this car is going to sit 5 inches from the ground, we custom built our exhaust and made the floor fit, because nothing can be lower than 5 inches. This Mopar is going to have a lot of power each time it takes off. A little extra body support is needed, so we added braces in the fender wells and between the firewall and dash to tie it all together. We stripped the Challenger down in a body. Then we had the floor, trunk, and not to mention the underneath of the car rhino line to keep it from rusting. This will also insulate the car and cut down on the noise. We sprayed the car with a fresh coat of primer to keep the exposed metal rust-free until we were ready to finish the bodywork and slap a paint job on it. With all the panels back in place, the Challenger was right where we wanted it to be. Low and mean, sitting just 5 inches off the deck. This thing is going to cause a small earthquake when it's done. Well, there it is. It's finally done. Well, kinda. Although this is really close to what we have in mind. The thing that's going to get this one to look like this one is bodywork. A lot of bodywork, and that's probably why it sat out there for so long. After that, we're going to blow it apart for the 3rd time, paint it. So we've got one last chance to get it right, and it starts with the doors. The top is really close to where it needs to be, but the middle of the door needs to be kicked in a bit. It's the door mounts, not the hinge, that lets you push the door in and out. That brought it in quite a bit, but the gap's too wide and way too tight at the rear. This is where the hinge mount comes into play. How's that? That gave us the gap we wanted. And the body lines match up really well. But the gap up front is not even, and not as flush as we want it. Must be a fender issue. I think we'll stop here. Those body lines are dead on. We're not so lucky on the other side. The door fit great, but the mounting holes on the fender need expansion. Don't just make a bigger hole. Know where you need the extra movement. With the doors and the back half of the fenders looking good, this is where you tie it all together. we left the front of the fenders loose till we see how the hood fits. We'll pull it forward first, then make sure the back aligns with the fenders, then finish it off up front. It's really not hard to align your panels. All you need is some simple hand tools and some time. So if you've got a sagging door or a sloppy fender or a hood that won't fit, now you've got no excuse. Now if your panels are bent, you'll need a slide hammer and a little finesse. To pull out dents, big or small, a stud gun is your next purchase. They come with a small slide hammer, and again, finesse is required. Now the stud gun is about 15 years old, and it's a lot easier on the metal than the way they used to pull a dent back in the day. They would just drill a hole, put a slide hammer on it, and pull it out. The holes took too long to fill, and they claimed it helped hold on to 10 pounds of mud. Space out your welds so you don't warp your panels. Looks like the original repair wasn't that good after all. They didn't pull it out far enough for us. Never rush a body guy, because if you do, your paint job might look like the ocean. Now after the break, we're going to pre-fit the rest of the front end to make sure everything's the way we want it. We're back, and we're knee-deep in the bodywork and overkill. Most of the dents are gone, and the panels are pretty much aligned. But to finish the front off, we gotta put some parts on. The original valance will align the bottom of the fenders. This grill is original too, and you have no choice here. No one's repopping them, so get out your checkbook and have it refurbished. Next is the front bumper. It's in good shape, but we're still gonna send it out to be re-chromed. A real common problem is this gap. You wanna make sure it's equal on both sides. Our bumper's adjustable forwards and backwards and side to side. Most are not. That's why you want to pre-fit everything. It's all in the details. Everything lined up better than we expected. A few minor adjustments is all we needed. When the fenders were reskinned, we didn't weld them up all the way. Now that they're tweaked, we'll make them permanent. It's time to weld up some more holes. Who needs an antenna? Our stud gun makes the perfect handle. And if you set them flush enough, they smooth out real nice. So far, we've showed you how to align panels, pull dents, and fill holes big and small. But another thing you can run into? Protrusions. Even though this top is going to be vinyl, it still needs to be smooth. Jumping up and down on it leaves creases and simply shows your lack of schooling. So with a dolly underneath and some banging on top, you can flatten it out. Different hammers do different things. If the flathead doesn't do it, the pick will. Same with the dollies. There are different curvatures for just about any part of the car. A carefully used file can show you the highs and lows in the metal. There's still a lot of hammering, but you get the point. Once we get done with that, we're going to do the mud work. We're not going to show you that because it takes days to finish, and well, it's just boring TV. But later on in the show, I got one more tidbit of metal work to show you. Like I said earlier, today's show is for you Mopar fans. So here's one of my personal favorites, the Barracuda.
This week's Muscle Car Flashback, the 73 CUDA 340.
"1973 was the next to the last year that the Plymouth Barracuda would be in production. Since 1970, sales numbers slowly began to decrease. The Plymouth Duster and Dodge Demon were cheaper and easier to insure for younger drivers. Plus, they offered the same performance options as the Barracuda and the Challenger at a lower cost. If you went to a local Plymouth dealership in '73, more than likely you were given this brochure. The Cuda's marketing image was now that of a sporty family car, a far cry from the aggressive Cuda ads of 1970. That didn't matter, it was still a Cuda. Same mean lines, same interior, same tough look. The days of the big block 440, 446 pack, and 426 Hemi had come and gone for the Barracuda. There were only two small blocks in '73, the 318 and the 340. The 318 and the 340 weren't powerhouses like the big blocks, but the 346 pack already had some history from Trans Am racing. It spawned the AAR Cuda model back in 1970, so with a little modification, it wasn't hard to make a standard 344 barrel a street contender. If you ask Lee Suttles about his '73 Cuda, he'll tell you it's definitely a muscle car. It's not just mean, it's downright nasty.
I got into cars from my father. He's had various cars over the years. His first car was a Mopar, a '64 Fury. He's always had the Bug, and I got the Bug from him. And we've always tried to keep some kind of old car around, and this is what I've ended up with. This is kind of my dream car. I'm attracted to the Cudas really because of some of my friends growing up. I got to ride to high school in a '71 Cuda. I always had a Mopar fever.
A motorcycle dealer in Georgia had the car for sale, and after seeing it, he knew it was the one. With a skosh over 64,000 original miles, matching numbers, it was a done deal. This Cuda came with a full rally package, factory red paint, sporting dual black body side tape stripes, dual rally mirrors, quad round taillights, an intimidating performance hood, Magnum 500 wheels, black interior with rally gauges, and a vicious front end letting you know that this fast fish means business. Under the hood, a 344 barrel with a 727 Torque Flight automatic transmission. This one's got a little bit more than factory horsepower. Chrysler rated the 344 barrel 240 horses. But you can hear this one for yourself. It's past the 240 mark.
I really tried to build it the way that I thought somebody could build it back then. I put all 68 to 71 cam and pistons, and all the setup was something that somebody could have gotten in '73, and kind of felt like somebody would have hopped it up with a little bit older, faster parts, so that's the way we built it.
He wanted the car to have that 70s hopped up look, so he added some beefy rear tires, adjusted the torsion bars to drop the front and raise the rear. You'd have to be blind to miss this thing coming down the street. Well, almost blind. There's always going to be some hazards when driving a classic on public roads, but that doesn't bother Lee. He'd rather have his car in the streets than sitting in a garage. That's just what he does. If you're ever down south, you might get to see this muscle car doing what it does best, tearing up the road. '74 was the last year for the Barracuda. They only made 12,000 of them, and you can still find one if you look hard enough. Like the old saying goes, catch a Cuda if you can. Now today's show has been all about the final metal work on our project here, and it's gone really easy because we've already reskinned the fenders and partially reskinned the quarter panels. But the doors, nobody repops them, so we had to save them. Usually you have two options. You could buy a new door, but you still have to transfer your window mechanisms and electronics to it. Or you can reskin it. It's faster and it's easier because you get to keep your old door intact, and I've got just enough time to show you how to do it. The factory uses a lip on the skins to mount them to the body of the door. You'll never pry it off in one piece, So your best bet, grind the edge to separate them. This is only about 18 gauge steel, so be careful, it's not gonna take much. If you choose to leave the panels or glass in place, be sure to protect them from sparks. There are some tack welds on top of the frame. And the spot welds holding on the remaining lip will need a little convincing. Now you can correct any damage to the body of the door, clean it up on both sides, and spray on some weld-through primer for extra insurance. Now there are two ways to finish this thing off. Just like it's been done since the first Ford hit a tree with a hammer and a dolly, or take advantage of some modern technology like this pneumatic door skinner Matco just came out with. A few tacks to keep it there, and some sealer to make it last. There you go. You just skinned the door, and in half the time it took to repair that one, not to mention the difference in mud work. We're out of time. Everything that we did here today, you could do at home in your garage. And being that most body shops can charge up to $100 an hour, you got a choice. Sit on your couch, watch cartoons and write a fat check, or get out and do it yourself later.